Mike. About Your House is brought to you in part by Queen City Home Store. Queen City Home Store is a family-owned business. They've been serving the Carolinas for over 70 years. They're the largest independent appliance retailer in the Carolinas, constantly growing and taking pride in the experience that they offer customers with a knowledgeable sales staff, product selection, and lowest price guarantee. About Your House is also brought to you in part by PutToolsInSchools.org, connecting students to tools of the trades and raising awareness of the many career pathways. Our guest today is CDA Environmental, Devin Arnett. He's going to continue talking about his experiences in the field. It's story time. And Ray will be talking with him more about that as well. So stay tuned. And now here's your host, Ray Terry.
And Richton Cunningham. Yeah. We got Devin Arnett in the house today talking about cooties. Talking about toxins. What make us sick? I guess they make you sick, or you wouldn't be testing for them, would you?
Some people, yeah, depends on your sensitivity, but yeah, there's some of that stuff can affect everybody.
Right. And we talk about crawl spaces. We talk about, well, any area that's prone to water intrusion. You know, one thing I want to hit on is our ductwork. You know, somebody asked me the other day, I was having a conversation, and she asked me as a female, and she says, why are the heat registers in the ceiling? Why? It doesn't make sense. Heat rises, and if the heat comes down, it stays up high. I says, well, yeah. Well, why wouldn't they put them down low? I says, well, air conditioning reverse it, and in the summertime, the cold goes to the bottom and heat goes up, right? Heat rises, you know, so it's reversed. So what's the big deal? She said, well, I just don't understand why they put them in the ceiling. And I said, because you're on a slab. Where are you going to run the ductwork?
In the ceiling?
You know,
attic?
And on that note, once again, I've said this many, many times, but I want to say it again. If you've got ductwork in your attic, you know, that's in two-story houses, you see a lot of ductwork in attics because you're in a two-story house. And that's where they run the ductwork for your comfort system.
Because they have two systems. Usually.
Yeah, two systems. You got a downstairs, or not necessarily sometimes. They really complicate the issue with one system and ductwork in the attic. And right then and there, I says, well, this house isn't installed correctly for heating, optimum heating efficiency and cost. But they'll do it to cut cost and save money. And those houses are typically between 2,000 and 2,400 square feet because they're smaller homes. They're just two stories. But back to the issue about an attic. An attic gets between 140 and 150 and more degrees in the summertime. Last week it got to 88, right? Remember that day? Mm-hmm. Well, I happened to go in an attic that day, and it was hot in that attic. Well, take an attic that's your standard home attic. It's going to get up to 140, 150 degrees in the daytime. And that ductwork contains air that's same temp as the attic, right?
Yep.
So the air in that ductwork, if it's sitting idle, meaning no pressure's involved, no air's on, no furnaces running, no air conditioning, nothing. But yet that air in that ductwork is about 140, 150 degrees. Wouldn't you agree?
Yep.
So therefore your air conditioner comes on. That blast of hot air that's in that ductwork is going to be in that room, you know, for maybe 30 seconds, probably 20, 15, 10, 15, 30 seconds. So you're getting a 140 degree blast of air coming into your house upstairs. Does that make sense? Well, that's standard, right? Every house that has ductwork. Well, if you encapsulated your attic, you would not have that anymore. Because the temp in your attic would never get above 80 degrees. And that's been proven to me many times. We talk about ABS Insulation being one of our sponsors. Well, they encapsulate attics. If you think about the summertime and your air conditioning, what you could save.
Oh, yeah.
It would be substantial.
Yeah.
And the sizing of your unit would not have to be as large as what you have. Therefore, it's going to give you total comfort.
Yep. And I see, like what we were talking about earlier, geographically where you're at. Like if you were to go to Montana, right?
Right.
They don't run any of their ductwork in attic or crawl spaces. It all is inside, and you could see it. Like they just, they'll put a register here and a register there, and they love. I mean, so that you don't have any. If it leaks, it just
Right.
leaks into the building envelope.
Sure. Gotcha.
So here, I think when you encapsulate in there, just always make sure that ductwork is sealed correctly, right?
Right.
Because you get that blast, and you want to stop that from happening. But if you're continuously doing 10, 15% duct leakage on the return side and just throwing that into the system,
Right.
I mean, it is a vulture.
I got you. Well, I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah.
Vulture in what way?
It's just an energy vampire. I mean,
Right.
It's just, your system works so hard. People don't understand your system is built to take 70-degree air and make it 72, or 72-degree air and make it 70.
Right.
That's all because you'd be surprised how many people will say they think their air runs out into the compressor.
Oh, yeah. Well, no,
They have no idea. And
Right.
I'm like, and like if you're doing mold testing, I get this all the time. Well, I want you to test in the ductwork. And I'm like, it's the same air.
Exactly.
It's this right here that we're breathing right now is the same
That's
air
why
that's
you
in
have
that
it
ductwork.
tested. Well, and since we're on ductwork, let's talk about crawl spaces. Crawl spaces are problematic, to say the least. A lot of people have no clue what goes on in their crawl space. And we talk about heating and air conditioning, and I cover this a lot because, well, you never can say it enough. People don't think about this. Out of sight, out of mind. You turn it on, it blows. Hey, everything's cool. Not necessarily. For example, in the summertime, you got supposed to be about 58-degree air conditioned, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you got 58-degree air, and it's 90 degrees outside. Humidity's 70%. Hot, muggy day. And your crawl space got ductwork going in it. And it might be flex duct, which is that puffy-looking ductwork you see under your house, and it's strapped up and run pretty.
A giant slinky with plastic on it.
Yep, exactly. And it goes and attaches to a metal boot that goes to the floor. Well, that metal boot is metal, okay? And if you expose that metal boot to the air in the crawl space, well, if it's 90 degrees outside, the air in the crawl space is going to be, it ain't going to be 70 degrees, I'm going to tell you that. It'll probably be somewhere between 80 and 90 degrees.
Yeah, if the vents are wide open, definitely.
If the vents are open. And that's why I tell people through many, many years, close your vents year-round in Charlotte.
Especially if you have a dehumidifier or something like that in there. Or I don't,
With
like I said,
dehues, I'm not a big fan of dehues.
I am not. I don't understand why the vents were there in the first place. So, but I mean, I don't understand why we have crawl spaces in the first place either. Anyway, supposedly the history of it is they used to make cellars, to keep your jarred goods or whatever down there. And you were built up just enough to keep your subflooring from getting wet. But then they decided, well, we want more room, so they came up with either put a basement or raise the foundation up a bit, give you some headroom.
Right.
And I'd be surprised, you'd be like, how many 1950s style homes have you been in that have a partial basement?
Oh, yeah, in Charlotte, very popular. Dilworth, Myers Park.
Open communication to the crawl spaces.
Yes.
Right. But there's a quick story. I get a call one day, and the guy's like, I got this odor in my bathroom, my guest bathroom on the first floor. Now, this is a big 4,000 or 5,000 square foot home. And he goes, I need you to come and help me figure this out because it's also hot in there.
Sure.
And it's muggy. And I'm like, okay. And I get there, and he tells me the story of, well, he's had 3 HVAC companies out. He's had a plumber out. He's had a termite guy out. And I'm like, okay, I don't know what we're going to do, but we'll have a look, right? And I said, show me to the bathroom. So he shows me to the bathroom. And I walk over to the vent. There's a floor vent there. I look up.
I bet you're seeing crawl space
I'm looking at the
dirt.
crawl space.
I'm sorry I interrupted you, but you saw dirt.
I said, I think I found your problem. And how it happened, and nobody saw it because nobody looked from this angle. They were all trying to look from underneath.
Sure.
And the ductwork went like this underneath 2 other lines of ductwork and went straight up
Couldn't
into
see
that
it.
boot. And they couldn't, you literally had to pull the other 2 apart and stick your head up in there to see it. And nobody did that. I'm like, well, there's your problem. So, I mean, making sure that ductwork is sealed because that, like I said, he's just blowing air. So it did cause a little bit of mold right around there, and it did elevate it in that bathroom. Because when you have humid air, the more humid the air is, the easier it is for materials to condensate and sweat, right? As humidity goes up, so does what the technical term is, the dew point at which that will sweat gets closer to whatever the ambient temperature is.
And the dew point in the summertime, if people would pay attention to it, tells you a lot.
Yes, sir.
It really does. The dew point is where water develops.
Yeah.
It's that simple. When it reaches that's why they call it the dew point. Dew is water.
Yeah. And the one thing I always recommend for people that have a crawl space is go and buy you one of them $30 weather units.
Yeah.
Right? And just throw one of those probes down in your crawl space.
Sure.
Just once a day, have a look at it. What's my humidity looking like? What's my, because, it may take, like you may get water through your foundation, but it only happens once every 3 years when the rain's coming from this angle, at this speed
Right.
for this long,
Sure.
right? And so you go into a crawl space and you'll see, well, there was standing water here at one time. I can tell by
You can
the
tell.
leftover
It's
material
obvious.
on the vapor barrier, or you can see the efflorescence coming through, right? But always keep an eye on it because you can tell a lot without having to go down there because nobody wants to go down there, right?
And that's another reason I recommend every year or 2, no more than 2, have your crawl space inspected. And while you're doing it, kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Call Kilo Exterminating. They'll come and take 4, 3, depending on the size of the house, 3 or 4 moisture readings. Those moisture readings give you a direct indicator of moisture content in the substructure or the structure itself. Floor joists, band seals, whatever the case may be. It's a great indicator to your moisture levels. And they'll give you that. That's part of the process. And another thing we talk about frequently is February is the driest month of the year. February is absolutely the driest month of the year because it's the coldest month of the year. Cold reduces humidity for some reason. Why is that?
Because, like I said, the warmer the air, the more saturated it can get.
Yeah,
That's just simple.
we're talking about the boots, where your flex duct goes through the floor in the boots. If that boot is exposed anywhere, what are you going to get? Water.
Yep.
You're going to get just like a tea glass, iced tea. Set it on the table in the summertime, what does it do? It just sits there and drips.
Yeah.
Same thing, that boot's downstairs in the summer dripping. Where's the water going? Well, if it's not hitting the ground, it's going in the ductwork. And you don't know how many times I've gone under a house and saw a big droop in the ductwork and knew exactly what it was. I said, they're holding water.
Yep.
They're holding water.
Yeah, that condensation, in there that holds that water. Now you're pushing humid air, because 72-degree air at 50% humidity feels good. 72-degree air at 75% humidity is clammy and uncomfortable if you're inside your house.
I can walk in the front door of a house and tell you basically where the humidity's at because I can feel it.
Me too. I did a doctor's office. It's not a doctor's office. It's a rehabilitation, like physical therapy place.
Right.
And we were doing VOC testing in there. And on the second round of testing, I came in and they said, I got some information from them and they had put in a new HVAC system. Mm-hmm. And I was like, is it rooftop? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, do you have a damper system? Because I had been there for 2 hours. The TO15 test is a 4-hour test. And I just got to sit there and look at it. And they go, yeah. And I go, what percentage of air are you bringing in? And she's like, I don't know. I said, whatever it is too much. And she's like, because she's the environmental person with whatever said company, right?
Right.
And she was actually like a little offended that I said that. I went, well, you have your equipment. I said, are you running it? And she goes, yeah. I said, tell me what that humidity is. And she comes back and she goes, I'm sorry, you're right. It's 65%.
Yeah.
I said, I can feel it on my skin.
Yeah,
You know,
you can
I
feel
can feel it. Now, my olfactory glands for smelling stuff are gone. You know, I can't smell anything. You know?
Right.
I can smell food for some reason, but other than that, if somebody says, oh, I got a mold problem here, can you smell that? I'm like, no, I can't.
And that's the reason they're building houses tighter, because you can control that humidity with ERVs, energy recovery ventilating systems, and keep your humidity down. And I've told thousands of times on this show, you can have absolute comfort, very comfortable at 76 degrees.
Yep.
76 degrees, and a lot of people say, no way, no way. Man, I set my thermostat on 70 or 72. Sometimes 72 is too hot. It's not too hot, it's too humid, because humidity dictates your comfort.
Yep. Right back to that ductwork again.
Yeah.
Because, you know, if your system, sometimes, well, they have this thing called short cycling where you install a system that's too big.
Yes.
And it cuts on and cuts off before it has time to really dehumidify the air.
Right.
Well, same thing, same concept if you're bringing in air into the system on the return side,
Yeah.
you know, or you're pushing too much out into a crawl space before it has a chance to get into the structure, right? Same thing. I mean, if the unit doesn't have enough time, because it's supposed to change your temperature, but it's also supposed to dehumidify.
And that's why you want, when you buy a new air conditioning, a new comfort system, let's call it a comfort system because heating and cooling come from the same system. And if you do, and you get a variable speed fan, that is your control factor to the humidity, because you can lower the speed of the air,
Yep.
lower the fan speed. And people say, well, what difference does that make? It goes over the evaporator coil at a slower speed, therefore removing more humidity out of it.
Yep.
And it works. Obviously, that's one of the reasons. And some of the higher efficiency, 22C or those, when you get above 20, they'll regulate
Themselves.
automatically. And that is a dehumidifying feature of what you're paying for.
Yep.
And it really works. But humidity is your comfort level.
Yeah. And you know, some people say 50%, that's too much.
And that's about norm.
I like some humidity, right? And if you dehumidify a home, especially like a high-end home with really nice wood floors or something, and you go ahead and change that humidity that's used to, you'll crack it. Like I was telling you earlier, I had to do a little research. I got asked to go and do mold and moisture assessments on multifamily out in Arizona. Yeah, Arizona, twice. And I was like, you're sending me out there for mold and moisture to the desert. You said, you do realize that? I'm like, yeah, we realize that. Well, what they have there is a little different. They don't really have problems inside. What they have problems with is the wood on the outside of the homes, because it's so dry all the time, it cracks. And the little bit of mold that is around, the spores land in there, and the next rain that they come fills it up. And then if you take that, you ever have seen dry rot? You just take the board like that, and you break it, you see those white fibers?
Yes.
That's mold. You know, but that's the problem that they have with mold versus what we have, you know.
Wow. So it's mold that just kind of lays dormant in the siding.
Yep. The spores are just waiting.
What do you do about that? I mean, you went out and tested, you found...
You switch to Trex or something like that, some sort of synthetic.
So it's a siding composite, be it wood.
Yeah, so like more on decks, you know, where they have, the pickets with the handrail and all that coming off the apartments.
Sure.
Right? Because they're like, some people just go out there and, you know.
And they called you like there's no people out there to do it?
Well, they were part of property transactions.
Yes.
Hedge fund things where they put all these things together, and a lot of them are multifamily, strip malls, those sort of things where they put them together, these packages or whatever. But I was doing just mold and moisture versus if somebody was also doing asbestos and some other indoor air quality stuff, and the other company was doing, somebody else was doing the physical condition assessment, which is like making sure it's up to code, and then somebody else was doing the environmental site assessment where they were looking for subsurface contamination. So we all sort of attack it at once so that the investor has a good idea of what they're getting into with the property. So I mean, it's like I said, I haven't. They've actually stopped doing those. They've gotten more into paying attention to radon because that seems to be the biggest culprit of, cutting down on the property's worth. Because if you install system-wide radon mitigation systems, right?
Right.
One, you got to have their continuous maintenance issue. So it's like going and you got to do a second HVAC system for everything, right?
Right.
Or a separate water heater or something like that. It's something that has a lifespan, and it's only going to work for so long, and you got to have somebody checking it as part of a maintenance program. And if it goes down, you got to replace it, and you got to retest every so often. So it's a pain in their butt.
I hear you.
So they seem to want to test for that first, and then make sure that's not going to be an issue long term.
How long were you out there?
A couple of days.
Cool.
And one of the other things that I was going to say earlier was I kept on running into their water heaters, and they weren't turned on.
The what?
The water heaters, the gas was turned off to all of them, every single one of them. And I looked at them, and I'm like, what's going on? He goes, we don't need hot water. We have all the hot water we need. We're in the desert.
They do it solar.
No.
So
the water comes through the reservoir at like 90 some odd degrees.
Really?
Yeah. The pool I went to that night, at my first night there, had these sprinkler systems just to try to cool the water off. And one of the locals tells me that they have what they call block parties. It's so hot there that they show up before the sun goes down, and they all bring a block of ice. And they throw the block of ice in the pool. And they let it melt. And then when the sun goes down, the ice is melted, it's cool enough to go out there and actually enjoy the pool.
Right. I know. I can't stand swimming in hot water. Lake Robinson in South Carolina on nuclear reactors on the power station. I jumped in that water one day and said, my gosh, this ain't comfortable. I said, what's wrong? Well, touch it. It was hot. That's no fun. We're dealing, Richton, commercial time. Let's pay some bills. Queen City Home Store, floor coverings and kilo. Can we do that? You got it? All right, Queen City Home Store, family operated, 3 generations now in the house. Roddy and his kids, Woody Player, the original player. Now we've got the Queen City Home Store, constantly growing, constantly striving to make you a happy homeowner. Queen City Home Store is furnishing your house with furniture, appliances, all the frou-frou you want. Frou-fru's that little stuff that sits around tables to make your house all kind of pretty and decorated. They got you covered. In bedding, any kind of bedding you want. Queen City Home Store is your location for home furnishings, regardless of what it might be. That's not the way it was, but it's certainly the way it is now. They currently have stores over the North and South Carolina region. They're growing rapidly with great customer service, great prices, great products. And you can go online and check them all out on queencityonline.com. That's queencityonline.com. Call them the corporate number, 704-391-6000. Give them a call. Floor Coverings International, Southeast Charlotte. They're your go-to floor covering dealer. And guarantee you they got what you want. You may not know what you want, or you may think you know what you want, but they'll bring the showroom to you. And they've got great staff, great service, great knowledge. So give them a call. Go online, yourflooringteam.com, or you just Google them, see where they go. They go everywhere. If you're in the Charlotte metro area, doesn't matter where you're at, Stallings, Indian Trail, Gaston County, Iredell County, Lincoln County, you name it, they're going to come to you. They got you covered. That's Floor Coverings International, Southeast Charlotte, yourflooringteam.com. We're talking about Kilo Exterminating. Kilo Exterminating, been in town a long time, great company. They do one thing. They check your house for invasive wood-destroying insects or pests. That's some ants that invade your property every summer. Yeah, ants are always a big problem when it comes to summertime. That's Kilo Exterminating, kilo.biz. Got CDA Environmental in the house today. We're just talking about all the cooties and the problems around air quality. And, well, your health primarily is the primary cause of. Well, I wanted to go back to the termite thing. How many people have you told they have termites and didn't know it?
I don't really.
Or you
pay,
just get away from that?
Yeah, I don't really pay that much attention. When I see the little piles, I'll tell them. I'll be like,
But you'll tell them if you see
might want to get
the
somebody.
tunnels.
Yeah, you might want to get somebody out here to have a look at that. You know.
Yeah, we were at the house last week, and my son says, "Dad, you know this house got termites." I says, "How you know?" He said, "Go over and look at the deck." And I went, and sure enough, there was active termites. And but the point of that is, a lot of people just take for granted that situation. I'd highly recommend. You know, termites can do a lot of damage in a very, very relatively short time. In 1 year, they can do more damage than you could possibly believe.
Yep.
So therefore, I'd highly recommend getting the pest control company out there at least once every year or two maximum. And I've said this many times, said it on the show here today twice, because it's very important, you know.
Yeah.
You know, the only time people really think about these things is when there's a health issue around it. You know, not your house is being
Gonna fall in.
eaten up. Well, my brother called me one day in the house in Myers Park. He said, "Ray, you got to come over here." I said, "Where are you?" He said, "I'm over in Myers Park. You got to come see this." I said, "What are we looking at?" "A wall." "Well, what's wrong with the wall?" He says, "Come over here and I'll show you." And termites had eaten the whole wall. Practically the whole wall was gone, eaten up, studs, everything. I mean, just gone. I don't even know how structurally it was standing. Of course, there's when you have that integral business going on.
Yeah. I'm not like I said, I'll never own a house with a crawl space again. I just won't. I mean,
Well, you know, I posed the
about
question to a lot of people, and you'd be one I'd pose it to. What do you like, Devin, a crawl space? What would you, crawl space or a slab?
First off, if I have a slab, everything in between here and China is insulating my bottom of my house,
Yep,
right?
yep. Air can't get through it.
Then I don't have to worry. I mean, you do have to worry about termites from the seals up, but
Sure.
other than that, I don't have to. I mean, that's usually where they're coming from is from the crawl space, one way or another. They're getting up
Sure.
through there, and no, I'm not worried about that. You know, if you lived in Asheville or Buncombe County, maybe you would need to worry about your pipes freezing, because that's what some of the people would be like.
Absolutely.
Well, your pipes will freeze. No, they're not going to freeze. My pipes are not going to freeze. Not in my slab. Now they may above the slab, you know, but as long as my house is heated, even if it's just 50 degrees, I'm not worried about that, you know.
You know, we talked about a lot of things here today, just in the 1 hour or so we've been on the air now. But, and I posed that question, I prefer a slab well over a crawl space, but at most, it's about a 50-50 thing, because I ask a lot of people in construction the same question. What would you advise, a slab or crawl space? Oh, crawl space. And I says, well, why? Well, what if you remodel? Take a concrete saw and cut your floor. You can remodel a slab. You can remodel a slab, you know, and, you know, say, I like crawl spaces, don't misunderstand me, but overall, they're a pain in the rear end.
I've never seen them move a house on a slab, though. I have seen them move houses.
No, you can't move a house on a slab.
No, it's there.
There's, yeah, okay. How many houses are you going to move in your life?
I've only...
Hopefully none.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've been a part of projects where they were like moving them off a piece of property to donate.
Right.
But other than that,
But
not something I see
slabs,
very often.
slabs are better for water intrusion. You don't have any, right? Done correctly.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if you're below grade, why would you? Well, you can build a slab, have a slab below grade. Your waterproofing's got to be done
Well, my
very well.
I guess if somebody were to say, "Oh, I really like crawl spaces," I'd be like, "Well, how come no commercial properties use crawl spaces?"
Well, they did back in the day.
They don't know more.
They don't.
No
No,
more. You know.
because up in Davidson, I had to go in a few. Out on Lake Wiley in Fort Mill, I had to go in a few.
Mm-hmm. I even did mills that had them.
What's that?
Mills.
Oh yeah.
I even did mills that had crawl spaces.
Oh yeah. Old constructions buildings had crawl spaces in Charlotte, because I've been under a few, but they don't do it anymore.
No. As a matter of fact, I did a 12,000 square foot house in Waxhaw, and when they showed me the crawl space,
12,000, that big one down there?
it's huge. When I went to the crawl space, they had completely encapsulated it, and I could walk from one end to the other standing up.
Right.
I'm 6'2", right? They had a 2.5-ton HVAC system just in the crawl space to keep the humidity down.
Lord of mercy.
Yep. Had the ductwork
2.5 ton
running.
air conditioner for the crawl space, which nobody lived
Heating
in.
and air, yep.
Wow.
It worked.
What's your thoughts on mini splits?
I mean, they don't seem to be causing any problems.
If I were to build a house today, and that ain't going to happen, but if I were to build a house, I'd comfort that baby with mini splits because it just makes sense.
Yeah.
There's no ductwork.
Yep.
They're efficient as heck, you know, and they work so well, and you can zone them,
Yeah.
and they just work.
Yeah. I mean, you might as well say I can do window units because those are the most efficient, you know.
Well, mini splits are in the same ballpark,
Yep.
and man, they work. In Europe, that's practically all they use.
If at all.
Yeah, if at all, depending on where they're at.
Yep.
But just like out in Montana.
Yep.
But I love mini splits.
I mean, that's the reason like hotels and stuff do the P-tax, you know, because they're 100% efficient. That's why I was telling you, if you go to like the Mellow Mushroom here in town, right, you'll look up, they're no longer doing drop ceiling tiles. They're painting the roof decking and the
They're painting
I-beams and
the
all
ceiling.
that. And they're running the ductwork in there, and just every so often they'll put in a vent.
Right.
You know, and it's 100% efficient because even if you have a 98% efficient HVAC system, by the time it runs through the ductwork in that unconditioned space and comes out, you're nowhere near 90%.
Right.
You know. So,
Gotcha.
I mean, that's why I was saying the same thing in Montana is they don't now it's not as pretty aesthetically, you know, because you can see the ductwork, you know.
Well, it's kind of neat looking to go in all these buildings, and you see it a lot. Like to your point,
Yep.
Recent construction, restaurants, and everything, it is exposed more
Yep.
so than not when you go into these new structures.
I mean, it just makes sense economically, you know.
Especially
and-
all these new craft brewery buildings. They're ducted that way. Well, I mean, not that I go in them a lot, but when I do, everything's exposed.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Tell us a story.
Well, I told you about ductwork one, but I will say this is one thing I wanted to say earlier that I think your clients, you know, your listeners need to pay attention to. You know how you were talking about the boots?
Yep,
In
the
these
boots
older-
going through the crawl space. In the
I
crawl
don't know.
space.
I don't know how many times I've ran into a crawl space where you had the system hooked up. A lot of it was galvanized, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And when they replaced it with flex duct, but they used the same boot, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, why would that be a problem? Well, because a lot of times those were sealed with that asbestos tape.
Right.
And I mean, I can't tell you how many times, you know, I've seen, and it's right there at a connection point, right? It's vibrating. It has air erosion. I mean, is it throwing those fibers? Because usually that white tape, that was probably anywhere between like 25 and like 40% asbestos.
Right.
You know, and if it's still there, I mean, it was used back in the 50s and 60s. I don't think I've seen it in 70s, maybe early 70s I've seen it, but I don't really see it past then. But, you know, they put it all around the galvanized connections and stuff like that. But like I said, I'll go down there and they'll be like, we'll be doing mold or something like that on many, many projects. I've had this happen where we're down there and I look up and I'm like, oh no.
Asbestos tape.
And they're like, you want to test it? I'm like, don't know. I'm wasting your money. You know, it's asbestos. Even if you need documentation for insurance, sure, I'll grab a couple samples, but it's asbestos. You know, it's like transite siding. I don't have to test
But
that
it's
either.
not friable.
If it's been there long enough, it is.
It is?
Yeah, it just gets so dry.
I know.
You know,
Very brittle.
You can just grab it and.
Well, I've told this story too. I remember the asbestos situation back in, goodness, it's probably been 30, 40 years ago. I went into a house in Myers Park. Back in the old days, they had boilers, and they fed hot water to all the radiators, or the
Radiant heating systems?
radiant heating systems. And naturally, all that had been removed in the house. But in the basement, there were still some water pipes with asbestos insulation on them. And the homeowner took me down there and he says, see that? Don't touch it. I got a friend. He told me, he warned me already. That's all he said. Don't touch it. So I left and the plumber came over. And you know what the plumber did? He touched it. And I told him not to. But he touched it. Not only did he touch it, he took a lot of it off. What'd he do? He disturbed it. The homeowner comes home. Homeowner calls me and says, we got a problem. I says, what? I never forget it. I can tell you his name. And he says, your plumber came over here today and removed all the asbestos insulation off those pipes I told you not to remove. Man, I am so sorry. Well, we got to deal with this. He said, I got a telephone number for you to call. I happen to have a friend in the EPA, you know, whatever division that is, and you need to call him and talk to him and find out the protocols on what you got to do. Man, I just saw attorney bills and all kinds of stuff in my mind that I was going to get sued. But I called the guy, and he told me immediately, Ray, don't get upset. Don't be alarmed. It's okay. It's going to be all right. I'm going to tell you what to do. He told me go in there and wet everything. Just spray it down with water. Collect all the residue, put it in garbage bags, double the garbage bags. And he said, and dispose of it. He said, you'll be okay. I said, I don't need to have it tested. No, not if you do what I told you. And I personally, with a helper, went down there and we did it. But I was scared to death. I mean, really, because back then, asbestos, you know, was in the news and all this stuff. That's back when it hit the, you know, big media campaign.
Yeah. Now that would be a $50,000 issue, you know, easily. You know, somewhere close to that, give or take.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, because now you got to do air monitoring. And if it's gotten into the structure because, you know, you disturbed it while the HVAC system was
Right.
going, now you got to, you know, treat the whole structure.
Well, are you seeing a lot of asbestos issues?
Yeah. I mean, when you say a lot, not a lot, but what the problem with it is people don't know what people don't know.
Exactly.
And a lot of times these young couples will buy a house or something and they're like, we're going to fix it up or flip it or whatever it is we're going to do.
Right.
But we're going to save money by doing all the work ourselves.
Right.
And I'm like, are you not watching this do-it-yourself TV shows?
Right.
They tell you, they actually have episodes where they're going in there and testing that material to make sure it's safe, you know, because now you took a job that was, you know, relatively inexpensive and now you've made it into a monster.
Exactly.
You know? And you got to do that clearance test, well, what they call air monitoring. You just sort of treat the whole thing as if it's abatement, but there's nothing to abate. You wipe everything down. You have to vacuum in what can't be wiped down. You're running big giant air scrubbers and you're air monitoring till you get to 0.01 fibers per cubic centimeter, and then you can break.
Wow.
You can break containment then, right? And as far as in a crawl space, he gave you the best advice if it was that far back, right? That was the best advice. But these days it wouldn't be the best advice. But it's, you know, what's funny is you said don't touch it, is as inspectors we are required to touch it. Like we're mandated to touch it because we got control if it's friable or not.
Okay, so you got to touch see if it's problem.
I mean, I've been doing it for so long, I don't have to touch it. I'll just look at it. I know it. I've already touched stuff like that 1,000 times. I know. But my people, you know, my inspectors, I'm like, you're gonna have to touch it if you don't know. You know, just give it a little squeeze.
Right.
You know, if it moves, that's friable material.
Well, I'm going to go into another area, and that's back to water, flood waters, high water. You know, you get a flood. It comes up 18 inches on the drywall. You got any stories about that?
Well, what I can tell you is that, you know, everybody wants to do a flood cut, right?
A
flood cut is like cutting up like a foot or foot and a half off of the floor for the drywall, like right away, right? So that it don't wick up, you know, that water doesn't wick up. And, you know, in conjunction with basically pulling that water out or stopping the water source or whatever. But like a lot of times these companies, these water, you know, mitigation companies, you know, they're like, well, we'll stop the leak, but we're going to call Devin and them in here to test this material because we have to know whether it contains asbestos or not.
Right.
You know, especially if it's pre-1980, they're really worried about it, you know. But that happens all the time, that there's a flood or whatever. And as long as they can get to it quickly, because it takes about 4 to 8 hours for most mold to establish itself and to start
How much?
growing.
48?
About 4 to 8 hours. Different species, like I said, it all depends on the type of species that are there, the saturation levels, how much moisture is there. And, there's a lot that goes into it. But, I mean, if you can get in there and cut any of that organic material, pull up the flooring, right away and dry it all out, you can usually get to it. We just go in there and do a screening just to make sure.
Right. I got you. Pardon me, I'm trying to get coordinated here.
Yeah. So, I mean, when floods happen, it's never an easy task to address, but it's not impossible if you do it the right way to minimize your exposure.
Gotcha.
To different things like mold and so forth.
I hear you. Well, mold is what's the number one thing you deal with? I asked you earlier in the first hour. Is there one thing that stands out above all the others with?
No, I mean, I guess asbestos testing, right? It's
Really?
probably the number one. Yeah, because we do a lot of compliance testing for companies that are, just making sure before they go in and start doing stuff that they're in compliance with OSHA.
Right.
And that they're done the testing. We probably do, if you combine that with the asbestos survey, a second would be mold. I'm sure it'd be right there, either second or real close.
Have you seen any mold to where you were fearful? Now, I mean, that sounded like a crazy question.
Yeah, well, if I walk into a structure and it's wall-to-wall mold, I'm immediately stepping back out and going and putting on my equipment. And I'll have the client, if it's a residential, I'll say, come out here and talk to me. I said, and I tell my people that too. I'm like,
You've seen one that bad?
Yeah. Yeah, I did one.
Where's the water source for something like that? That's the number one thing you look for.
Usually humidity issues. With
Really, just humidity?
Leaky duct work, short cycling.
Right.
And the HVAC system's just starting to go out.
Right.
It's just not as working correctly.
Right.
And that short cycling, and I'm not saying this to whoever, because I know there's a lot of companies out there who do really good work, right?
Mm-hmm.
But, like I said, the homeowner doesn't know what the homeowner doesn't know. And if you have a 20-year-old 3-ton system, right, and they come in to replace it and they go, well, it's going to be $9,000, or for $8,000, we can give you this 3.5-ton unit, right? It's bigger, better. And so that's what people, okay.
Bigger on comfort systems is not the way to go.
No.
People say more. No.
You'd actually rather have it just a little undersized,
Right.
so it runs longer.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I'll say this too about summer times in Charlotte, North Carolina. If you got a house and you want to go on vacation a month, you better leave your air conditioner on.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people cut it off. Big mistake. Tell them what happens.
That humidity.
Humidity. You'll come back and you'll have mold crawling up some walls.
And a lot of times, if it's that type of that type of mold, it looks like dust,
Yeah.
right? Now I said, run your flashlight across it, not at it, and you'll see it. It'll light up like a little forest, But a lot of times, if you have white mold on a white wall, unless you know what you're looking at, it's like
Can't see it.
Okay, yeah, and you go up to ductwork or a door and you point a flashlight right at it, and you're like, I don't see anything. Then run it across, everything just illuminates.
I got a call from a customer of mine who I've done a lot of work on a duplex he has. He called me and says, Ray, I got a mold problem over in my house on Roland. Mm-hmm. I says, it was summertime. I said, I know what's wrong. People run those, people are running the heat with the doors closed. And they got no air circulation. And they had mold growing up the baseboard. And therefore, and they had no insulation in the crawl because of the older unit. And knew immediately, I said, you're going to have mold in that house.
Yep.
If those old structures are basically dog crates to start with. I call a house that doesn't have much insulation dog crates, because the old houses in Dilworth, Plaza Midwood, the old sections.
No vapor barrier, no insulation.
And all that moisture's invading the house.
What's sort of weird though is there's probably been more than not that I've seen those, no mold problems whatsoever, because it was that rough cut.
Right.
And that whatever that
Roughage.
species of wood or tree, it has a natural retardant effect.
Right.
And whatever they did back then, maybe they didn't do anything, right?
Right.
Maybe they just cut it, and it still kept some of that. And a lot of times I'll go into a structure and they got no insulation, no vapor barrier. It's not wet. I do see a little bit of efflorescence, but there's no mold.
But it's obvious not a problem because there's, I'd say, thousands of homes in Charlotte, North Carolina that were built prior World War II and post World War II that are those kind of houses, and there's no issues.
Their power bill, but
Oh God, their
Other than
power
that-
bill's enormous.
yeah, other than
You know,
that, it's just a.
And I always ask any customer of mine or anything, I said, "What's your power bill?" It's one of the standard questions I ask. Well, it varies. I said, "I know it does. It's higher in the summer than it is in the winter, right?" And some come back and says, "Not necessarily." Those are the older homes where you got a lot of leakage in the winter and it's rather drafty,
Yeah.
And speaking of which, let's plow into a break here. If you got a drafty home that's a dog crate, you may want to call ABS Insulating. ABS Insulating, your go-to insulation company in the Charlotte metro area, specializing in residential construction and problems. If you've got issues around your comfort, I talked about attic encapsulation. That can be an answer in itself. Would you rather put a whole new unit in, or would you rather encapsulate your attic? Think about it. But if you're going to encapsulate your attic, I highly recommend you doing it after a new roof. After a new roof. Why? Because the average deck replacement on a house, from my friendly roofer friend, says 7 to 10 sheets. So that's 7 to 10 sheets of plywood they got to take up. That's 32 square feet per sheet, and do the math. But that's not the important thing. The important thing is they're going to damage that foam insulation, because when you encapsulate your attic, you're using probably open cell foam, which is, will come out of the voids. So if you've got a new roof and want to really optimize your comfort, lower energy bills, you may consider encapsulating your attic. And the temperature in your attic will never exceed 80 degrees after that.
Do they do vapor barriers as well? I mean, radiant barriers?
No.
Okay.
I'm not a fan of radiant barriers, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But if you're looking for greater comfort in a air seal program, we've been talking all day about air, humidity. If you call ABS and see if they can do an air seal program on your house, it works. Guaranteed, it works. And I've done many through the years that substantiate that and validate it. So ABS Insulating, go to absinsulating.com, and don't forget, they got a gutter division. And their gutter division's absolutely wonderful. Fair price, great work, know what they're doing. And we can get into the jumbo downspouts. I talk about it all the time. Most residential subdivisions have regular old itty-bitty downspouts. They don't work. Not if, they don't work. Jumbo downspouts, very inexpensive, relatively speaking, to change out your existing downspouts. ABS Insulating will take care of it. absinsulating.com. Let's move to Rhino Lift. Rhino Lift Foundation Solutions. Great company. Two boys got together right out of college, and they did their jobs, their summer jobs and side jobs to get through college with Rhino Lift concepts, encapsulating, crawl-space issues, crawl-space work. So when he got out of college, they had a great idea. We're going to develop a company around transparency and pure honesty. And they did just that. Rhino Lift Foundation Solutions, a great company, licensed contractor in both North and South Carolina. If it's got something to do with your crawl space, your foundation, your slab, your patios, concrete lifting, they're the go-to company. That's rhinoliftfoundations.com. Talking about, well, we're talking about everything today, it seems, aren't we?
Yes, sir.
Now, what did we just say we were going to talk about again?
You were downspouts.
Downspout. Oh, yeah. Do you ever Do you ever see that situation in water intrusion?
Yeah, a little bit. I'll tell you a little story. Years ago, when I was still living in Charlotte, I decided I was going to put rain barrels on my house. And I wanted to use that water I had a sprinkler system,
Sure.
and I wanted to use it to, do their thing. So I looked at how much it was going to cost to get the rain barrels, run the piping and everything. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll call CMUD and I'll be like, okay, how much can I take off since I'm collecting all the water from my roof,
Sure.
right? And it's not going into your sewer system or your stormwater system.
Right.
And they went, we can't do that. I'm like, what do you mean? And they're like, we don't have anything in the books to be able to do that. And I'm like, you mean regulations, guidelines, anything like that? They're like, mm-mm. I'm like, okay. So you have a mathematical equation that you're using a satellite to look at my house, and so how much square footage of impervious, ground I have. And you're using that math to then charge me, like multiplied by this number, to come up with how much I pay in my bill. Just subtract the amount for the house from that equation. And they're like, we can't do that. I'm like, rain barreling is a good environmental thing to do.
Absolutely.
Water is important. Why are you not, it was just another one of the things that drove me crazy about living in Charlotte.
Rules and no rules. Rules. Really, some states, they say the rainwater is state-owned.
Yep.
Now, if that ain't getting ridiculous, what is? The rainwater, the state owns it, and it's a fact. They have literally come down on some people for using rainwater. Cited them.
Yep.
The rainwater don't belong to you.
Which states is that? Do you
I'm
know?
not
State of
sure.
confusion.
I'm not sure. But I'm going to tell you.
California?
Yeah, I guarantee you, if they're not number one, they're number 2 or 3.
Yeah, it's crazy. I'm going to tell you. Speaking of rainwater, here we got Cutting Edge Stone Works next week on the show. And after that, we've got Compton's Automotive. We got a garden show coming up, and that's what I'm looking for, the garden show. We got a garden show coming up April 21st. We're going to have gardening because we're headed to the summer months, and, hey, we need to talk about growing stuff, growing what you can eat. In gardening, Miss Lorraine Carpenter, Master Gardener, she's going to be on the show. We got a show on the 14th of April, Supreme Tile and Flooring. Then we got garage people coming back to visit us on the 7th. Good shows ahead. Compton's Automotive, going to talk about cars moving into the summer months, getting warmer, things you need to know. You got to stay abreast of all this stuff, shouldn't you?
Yes, sir.
Or maybe you can just not stay abreast and stay totally
It'll cost you money.
ignorant. Yep, it does.
Not being abreast of what's going on will cost you money.
Well, I'll tell you this. If you own a house, it never stops.
No.
It never stops.
No, it doesn't.
And that's why I'll never own another house, never live in another house. I've lived in a warehouse now for 8 years, and it doesn't require much from me. But you go home every day and you think there's more to do.
No.
Practically.
Well, there's always something to do.
We got always things to do.
I'm not a yard guy. I would rather, I'll trade 2 hours in the gym for an hour in the yard.
I hear you.
Some people they absolutely love doing yard work, and I get it. Sort of. It's just not my thing.
Right. Well, let me go another direction here and talk about put tools in schools. Every week I've got to do a little bit. We've got 2 events this week. Career days. We got one tomorrow at Northwest School of the Arts, a great school. It's over on Beatties Ford Road. Wonderful kids, great students, and that they just love tools. And then on Thursday we've got an event at Union Preparatory School, Union County, down there. Looking forward to visiting that. Never been there, but I want to tell everybody. PutToolsInSchools.org is out to raise the awareness to the many career pathway in the trades. I've been to 39 schools now, 39 schools, 39 trade days or career days, whatever you want to call them, where we go to the schools, we interact with the kids and make them aware. We need industry to get involved. We need industries for support. We're creating, I took you out in the toolbox, right? What'd you see? Saw a nice space.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You're going to have a lot of room to work there. A lot of area to
A great
teach.
potential for teaching. Teaching kids about tools, be it electrical, be it plumbing, be it HVAC, welding, cooking, domestic chores like washing clothes. I had a group of kids in here Saturday, and they range from age 10 to 17. 17-year-old didn't want to be here, but that's okay. He won't be here again, because if you don't want to be here, we don't want you here, because we want you involved in learning. Well, I mean, if you don't want to learn, like any kid or anybody, if you didn't want to learn, you're not going to pay attention, are you?
No.
So,
And you won't retain either.
You're just wasting people's time at that point.
yeah, exactly. So this Saturday, March 21st, we've got another work day at the Toolbox. We need volunteers from this point forward, because summertime, we're going to have summer camps here around the trades. I forgot automotive. We can't forget automotive. We're going to teach you a little bit of automotive, carpentry, like I said, electrical, plumbing, heating and air, sheet metal work, drywall repair. We're going to have clinics over here, workshops to where homeowners that want to learn about how to repair, like how to repair a hole in the wall. How many people know how to do drywall work? It's not hard. It's just knowing how, and we're going to teach those small, basic tasks that you can do on your own. Plumbing. We're going to have plumbing days, things that you can fix, you can repair. You'd be surprised what you can repair, like a toilet, a commode. How many people know how to repair a commode? Because there's really not much involved. There's really not much involved.
Garbage disposal.
What's that?
Garbage disposal.
Yeah, garbage disposal. Could you replace the garbage disposal?
That's $300 savings right there if you do it yourself.
Yeah, and you can do it I could do it in less than 30 minutes. I can change out a garbage disposal in less than 30 minutes. Why? Because I've done tons of them through the years. And they're all basically the same. I would venture to say most all the garbage disposals are made in the same manufacturing facility, with different names, because they all work and pretty much install the same way.
Yep.
And you can do it very easily. Well, wouldn't you like to know that? Well, put tools in schools, a toolbox up here. We're going to have clinics. But we've got to get it to where we need it to be. And we can't do that without support. And we need your support. So go to puttoolsinschools.org. There's many places you can sign up and help. And we need money. We need sponsorships. We need people to get involved and make a difference to these kids' lives, because they have no clue. None. No clue at all on what to do. So, puttoolsinschools.org. We need your help. Devin, I want to thank you for coming in today.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate all your plethora of information. And looking ahead, we'll have you back.
Yes, sir.
This
Just
year,
let me
we've
know.
had you on the show twice.
Yes, sir.
All-time record. But due to the frequency of necessary knowledge that people need to know, that's why I have you on here, because it has become more relevant to most people than it used to be.
Yes, sir.
Because of, I would say, indoor air quality.
Yep. I'm telling you, since COVID, things have changed. How people look at it, what they're worried about, and so forth.
Right. And there needs to be worry. And if you're concerned about mold, don't go call an abatement company, have them come in to strip your house. Call CDA Environmental to have it inspected, because you may not have to do a thing.
Yes, sir.
Is that true?
That is true.
And you'll tell them, won't you?
Yep. That 95% of what we do for property transactions are just screenings, and most of them come back just fine.
They do? So there you go. So next week we got Cutting Edge Stoneworks. We got the owner of the company, great guy, Mike Gioriano. I think I said that right. We got Ivy Young going to come in to bring us up to date on stone counters. You'd be surprised what goes into the stone counter business. cutting edge, first class up in Morrisville. Great company. So tune in next Saturday as we bring you more about your house on Fox Sports Charlotte, 9 to 11 every Saturday morning. Talk to you